If you go to the properties where Peter Andrews has been working, those properties from the air are green. The neighbouring property is brown.
I haven't dreamed up something. I've gone out and said, there it is. That's how it works. There. Get in the car and we'll drive somewhere else.
If we can get this up as a model so that, well, here it is, you know, we've got eminent scientists all agreeing that this works.
Once you get the hydrology right, this grass mix will stand 5 months or more.
Look at that. That's fantastic.
So that's 5 centimetres of soil formation. I go over farmland all across the Central West and you never see soil being built, you see it being degraded. Now here in 18 months you are seeing soil made on top of sand by a very simple process, and the organic layer is quite significant, that black layer that starts to form. I think it's the most significant contribution to landscape restoration that I've seen in Australia.
So much of it depends on the ability that Peter has to read the landscape and to know how to intervene. And that's the most difficult part of taking Peter's work, because you could do a lot of damage if you didn't know what you were doing. Peter's understood what to do, but often it's difficult to explain that to somebody else, and sometimes people are concerned, well, what if you get it so wrong you can make things worse? Peter can see changes in gradients and actually understand the previous stream structure. He is actually a very, very good geomorphologist.
Pre-European history in Australia, the soils were more like that here. Then they became like that in recent times, and now in very recent times, in the last year or so, Peter has brought soils back to more like this. And I think that is phenomenal.
It is phenomenal.
It's exciting.
And it all comes together in this very simple process that he, in a sense, has reinvented, but it was always there in the Australian landscape. I think Peter is a near genius. He's a simple farmer who's understood science better than most scientists, if not all scientists.
So it's a kind of a stabilising, maturing process.
Yeah, then I think it stops.
And they come somewhat grudgingly to learn at his feet.
Peter's got some theories that really challenge existing theories on how streams and landscapes function.
There's a real influence of groundwater recharge here.
We've spoken to landholders upstream and downstream, and they've seen the results, and now they're virtually beating on the door to get involved in some way from the top of the valley right to the bottom of the valley.
A lot of leaf litter accumulating.
So what's interesting here is he's trying to raise the groundwater, and elsewhere in Australia, I mean, the message is lower the groundwater because of salinity. But the results are startling. Or should we just keep moving?
Salinity does take place by a rising water table, but if on top of that rising water table you can actually sit soil with fresh water in it, you can avoid the problem. So what Peter does in summary is he basically fills up the gouge stream channel and then letting the sediment accumulate behind it, and by encouraging therefore the water to flood out, fill up the floodplains and create a freshwater lens which sits on the salt.
It's difficult for me to understand what's a greater cause in Australia than someone say, listen, here's 100 scientists, here's $100 million or $1 billion, it doesn't matter, right? Get out there and work on this environment. There is nothing more important in our society than the environment that we live in. Nothing.
That same de-energising component of a lot of different speeds of water.
We've been bringing out some European scientists, and they've come out here and they've looked at what he's doing and said, oh, why doesn't your government understand this?
These floodplains produced a regular water pattern.
They see what he's doing as being monumentally important, and that the fact that nothing's happening here very much at all is a great tragedy.
We have practically no alternative to this, what's Peter doing. You are losing water to the sea and never get it back again. you are exporting your water. That's just what you do in Australia. You have to retain the water in the landscape.
What would take 50 years in many places will happen in 5 months here.
I put the question back. Could we afford not to take him seriously if all other scientific approaches to landscape failed?
Peter Andrews gently and humbly, if you like, is returning the land to what it was naturally before. It's not a panacea. It will need to be used with discretion, with wisdom. Peter has done a huge amount of the pioneering work and has run all the risks that are intended on that and has suffered as a consequence.
There's only one way to harness his genius, and that's to act quickly. Peter's not going to be around forever. If he died in a car crash tomorrow, we would lose a priceless national resource that no amount of money would be able to buy.